and thank you guys for having me. Okay, hello class, welcome. And first of all, I would like to ask you, yes, started. So how are you all? Like this is the end of the term and I think a lot of pressure going on. But however, I'd like to ask you guys, how are you? Surviving? Some of you is like, yeah, some of you okay in the middle. I know the pressure, and this is the end of the semester, March, a lot of assignment going on and exams. But this is the normal life, how it goes. And today, I would like to give you an introductory lecture on human-computer interaction. So the term is self-explanatory already. So the interaction between human and computer. And here computer is like not just the computer, like any device which have some computation power, like mobile phone, and a lot of device we are having or using nowadays. So let me start. So our learning objective of today's class is I will give you an introduction to human-computer interaction and usability heuristics, which is very important in HCI because when the researchers or scientists are designing something, like if they are following the usability heuristics, the system they are designing like meets all the criteria and it's become a good system or software or a product. And we learned something about prototyping and in all three topics like HCI, usability heuristics and prototyping, you will see different application of prototyping in HCI and how we can apply usability heuristics in HCI. So what is HCI? So this is a kind of design, like research in design and the use of computer technology. And HCI also sometimes termed as HMI, human-machine interaction, MMI, man-machine interaction, and CHI, computer-human interaction. So all the terms are like similar. The birth or the history of HCI. So in 1960, computer researcher or you can say researchers began to focus on developing more user-friendly computer interfaces or devices. So nowadays, your computer or mobile phone have a graphical user interface, but before, back in like 80s, all the computers or computation device, initially there was no like user interface like this graphical user interface. So they use kind of command line, and before command line, they use like all the hardware interaction. And the term HCI was first used in a paper by Jessier in 1963. So this term is not like new, it's from, you can say, 1960. And the rise of graphical user interface, like after, in 1980s, we see like, here is a simple picture. You can see by mouse cursor, you can like navigate through the user interface and you can select, you can delete, you can do a lot of things. So this whole thing, you can say the graphical user interface. So user can do anything. User can interact with the machine, and this UI or the interface helps the man to contact with the machine, right? So in 1980s, the introduction of graphical user interface like GUI has the revelation and made it easier for user to interact with the computer by providing visual representation. Like we are using the machines nowadays, which machines or like all the computation devices have a graphical user interface. And it begins in 1980s. Then, after 1980s, in 1990s, all the different kind of mobile computing devices, like you can see here, a smartphone, a smart GPS, laptop, pad, PDF, phablets, VR headset, AR headset. So all the mobile devices are having the more power, like having graphical user interface. And researchers began to study how people interact with small devices like mobile devices, which have kind of limited input, and like how people can interact with all those small devices as well. So all people or researchers are traveling different direction, like mobile devices, computer devices, and all kind of devices having like kind of computational power. Like after 1990s, here it comes the ubiquitous computing. Like now, it doesn't just stay like between man and computer. It just everything related to like how people like interact with everyday object. Like day to day, in our day-to-day life, we are using different objects, right? So how people are using all different kind of objects in their day-to-day life. So researchers began to see and connect all those devices or daily things. Like we can see here is a diagram, and this is a network mesh in the middle, and this one is connected with IoTs and all the other devices. On the top you can see, and on the left you can see all the information context aware. So ubiquitous computing gives more and broad uh, opportunity to researchers, or researchers are looking in a like watching in a bigger picture how they can connect all the devices, all the daily things people are interacting with. And nowadays we can see researchers are exploring new interface for VR or AR, and not in just movies. Previously, we saw in different movies they have like kind of like you watch like wear some glasses and you can interact with in the middle of nowhere, like in the air. There are some user interface you can click and you can interact with. So those things are becoming real, and we are having more realistic device in nowadays. Like it's not just a movie or fiction. So this is the future direction, or all the HCI researchers, what they are doing, they're moving or pushing all those things forward, which giving us all the new technologies and all the cool things we are using nowadays. Okay, so does just HCI is a thing in computer science? No. So HCI is connected with, I can say like literally connected with everything. And you can see in this diagram, HCI is connected with computer science, engineering, design, sociology, psychology, cognitive science, information security, and a lot of things. So HCI is connected with everything. If you think of something and if you want to integrate, okay, does this thing have some connection with human? And does this can we make out of some device or make these thing digitalized? When you're thinking of something or making something digital or more user-friendly, it might be anything. Like nowadays, you're using a lot of devices. But if you think of a single device which can help you to facilitate just one single task. Like you want to build a small device which will be in front of your table, and it will show you every morning just your to-do list. That might be a device, and when you're designing that thing or thinking of that thing, you can think of as yourself as a human and that thing as a computation device and how we can interact with that thing. Okay? So let's see a video. Okay, so already you have been introduced with HCI. So now it comes the usability heuristics. So what is this? So this is the guideline or principle that helps designers. Here designers is like anyone who design a product or an app or a device, and the usability heuristics is a guideline or rules or principles which helps those designers to propose or create or design something user-friendly, like design all the user interface makes more user-friendly so that user can understand like easily. When like you're sitting in front of a computer, or when you're going to Vancouver and like purchasing a ferry ticket, so you have a user interface. Like the kiosk machine, or a kiosk machine, you can see activating the one card from Jamie Castle or Saab. So insert the card and you just have a small like little button. So because the purpose of that machine, from like for example the BC Ferry kiosk machine to purchasing a ticket, just purchasing a ticket from this end to that end. So the user interface who designed that thing, so they think of, okay, what I need, where I can place those buttons. So if a user can use that without any training, because I never use that kiosk, I haven't watched any YouTube videos like how to use that kiosk. So I go and stand in front of the kiosk, like selected the payment method maybe, or selected the ticket from where to where, then tap the card and it gives me the card. So that UI, that user interface means it's a good user interface, because like out of 100, maybe 99 or 95% people easily understand how to use that machine. That means that's a good user interface. And the usability heuristics is helping designers to create or design good user interface. So Jacob Nielsen and Rolf Molish in 1990s introduced the usability heuristics. And in 1994, Nielsen, and we'll see in another slide, Nielsen added further like documented all those things and proposed more robust usability heuristics, a list of usability heuristics. Importance of usability heuristic, like usability heuristics in HCI. You can see this is this image from a paper, research paper published in 2022. It says like in past the HCI was like focusing all those things, but in nowadays HCI in usability heuristics like is focusing on interaction with and through the technology, and seeking to understand and support the human beings or humankind. Here is the 10 usability heuristics proposed by Jacob Nielsen in 1994. And if you see from 1 to 10, the first one is the visibility of a system status. Like when you are using a system, like for example, you're using Messenger. I think most of you are familiar with Messenger. When you're active in Messenger, it shows active status. That means that system has the visibility of system status. So your friend can see you are online, or you can see like your friends who are online, right? Second one, like match between system and real world. Like for example, so this is a real world board, where I can present something, I can show something, I can draw something. And people who design like the PowerPoint, the presentation thing I'm showing this class today, so these two have some similarities because in real life, this board gives me the opportunity to show something, draw something. At the same time, this gives me the same facility. So have some real connection, like match between system and real world. And then the user control and freedom. So okay, I can edit. So I have drawn something here. So as a user, I have the control over this board. So as a user, I have the same control with this thing, like the PowerPoint presentation tool or any presentation tool. I can easily, like this is the image inside this page or window, I can easily delete this image or replace. So as a user, I have control and freedom of using this system. And like, I'm not going through all of those. Like for like 7, if your system have the flexibility of and the efficiency of use, like maybe the user who have more experience, they don't want to like every time click all those buttons like in different places. So if you give them the accessibility or flexibility like using command like Control C, Control V, like copying the whole text, selecting Control A, selecting everything, and using command line, you can do it more easily. So if you're designing a system, a product or a website or a mobile app or a web, anything, and if you're considering these 10 usability heuristics, and if your system has all the heuristics, then at the end, you will end up with designing or building a good product. Then after the usability heuristics, it comes the prototype. Because on that video, Don Norman's video, they have shown like a prototype. There is a circle like, they proposed or said about prototype. So why prototype? Sorry. So prototype is a working model of a product or system, and using prototype before actually jumping into like developing the whole system, you can make a prototype or a sketch, and you can test the prototype, and you can see, okay, if this is really what you want. For example, there is a login. This is a prototype, and this is a like login page. By easily you can see. After that, this is a like of view of image view of. I can see different image like Instagram. Then second page have a map view and bottom something. So before designing or developing the same system, like if I want to build the same system, like doing programming in like maybe Android application or iOS application, it will take a lot more time. But within 10 or 15 minutes, someone can easily do a prototype like this. So why prototype? So that's why to get a feedback in like easily, a real-time feedback quickly. So prototype gives the accessibility to get feedback earlier and cheaper, and you can experiment with alternatives. Like you can, if you're designing something, like for example, an app, mobile app, you can have 2 or 3 different prototype, like a sketch, for example, and you can show to your stakeholder, customer, or the owner, like you're developing that app, like you're the developer, you're the software company, and you're making a prototype, and you're showing it to the owner, product owner, or the stakeholder, and let's let them see, okay, based on your requirements, this might be a product. So if they agreed, then you can like create a more robust prototype. So we will see. So here, before prototype or in prototype, those few steps you can follow, not mandatory, like identifying the purpose or the scope of the product. So before prototyping, so you have to know what are you designing, or the purpose or the motivation of the product, or all the requirements, and then you can do some sketching. Then there is another thing called wireframing. So sketching like pen and paper, wireframing is like more digitalized. And then you can do some mockups, and then comes prototyping. After prototyping, you can do some testing if all the prototype works or not, and then you can hand off the actual thing. Let's see what kind of prototype have, so there are two type of prototype, like low fidelity and high fidelity. Low fidelity prototypes are those prototype have some in low fidelity prototype. So the visual design only have some visual attributes of the final product, and the content are only the key element. But in high fidelity, we will see like it's more robust and more realistic. And in low fidelity, there is a positive side is in like you can do the prototypes in fast, and it's cost effective, and it's collaborative. So when you are designing or sketching something like this here in this image, so as a team, if you are a developer team or like a designer team, so 2 or 3 of you can sit together and design something together, like it's collaborative, and you can easily design a few prototype like this within hours or 1 or 2 hours. But in high fidelity prototype, the visual design or content and interactivity it takes a lot more time to design that thing. So I will show you some example. Here, the pros and cons of the high fidelity prototype is high fidelity prototype. The negative side is it takes more time to prototype the system, but the positive side is it gives you more realistic view, and you can experience the actual system before like developing the whole system. Using the prototype, you can see if you click on a specific button of an app, where it takes you to, how it works. I think you're confused with those terms. I will show you a video later. And in prototyping, there are few different medium of tools you can use, like you can use pen and paper. Here there is an example of a software. You can say clickable wireframe. You can design a prototype like this. It doesn't have a lot more content. You just have a window and different section of the window. And this is an example of a low fidelity prototype. Here you can see like different screen. Maybe this is a app and a prototype of an app, and like this is a login page. If you click in login page, it takes you to another page, Then comes the digital prototype. You can see here is an example of digital prototype. So, and this is maybe a restaurant billing system, and you can split all the bills among your friends. And there is another thing called coded prototype. So there is a different tool. For example, this is Framer.js. You can code the prototypes, like doing actual coding. You can make prototypes. And popular prototyping tools nowadays people are using is InVision, Adobe XD, Figma, Sketch, and I already showed the Framer.js UX pin. Let's watch a video about InVision, how it works. So pretty much you have mentioned the thing we have seen so far in class. That means the class is engaging and like you're watching or listening to me. Thank you guys for listening. Now we have the prototyping activity. So bring your pen and paper, and you have two options. Like you can prototype or design or sketch something like this is the example. And first idea is prototyping a note-taking app, for example, Google Keep or Microsoft OneNote. And second one is like designing or sketching your own version of Spotify. Maybe the Spotify you're using is like super perfect, but you want your own feature. So let's take 5 minutes and make a prototype of your own Spotify. This is the summary what we have learned so far from the class. So you have learned what is HCI and the 10 usability heuristics and a few things about prototyping. And thank you guys for having me.